Jeremy Hunt, said he would be prepared to look the owner of a family business in the eye if their business went bust as a result of a no-deal Brexit. Today, he says he's ready to spend billions of pounds to protect small firms, the fishing and farming industries, from the tariffs which would probably follow a no-deal Brexit. It is not long ago, though, since he used to warn that no deal could lead to disaster, an early election and the election of another Jeremy Corbyn as our Prime Minister. Liam Fox, Trade Secretary, International Trade Secretary and Jeremy Hunt supporter, joins us in the studio. Morning to you.
Good morning.
He has shifted, hasn't he, from telling us no deal should be sort of avoided almost at all costs and is a disaster to saying let's get ready for it.
Well, we have to be prepared for a no deal for two reasons. Number one, for itself. It may happen, and we may not be entirely in control of that process. It's something that the EU could do to us. Secondly, of course, being prepared for it improves our negotiating capital. One of the problems that we've had in the negotiating process is I think there has been a widespread view in Europe that Britain wouldn't really go as far as leaving without a deal. Therefore, they could get away with offering us a lot less than they might otherwise do. So there are two effects here. And on the economic one, we need to ensure that some of the very predictable elements of a no deal should be mitigated.
Talk about that detail in a second, but first of all, your first point. Some got the impression that Britain might not be prepared to do it. They really got the impression that Jeremy Hunt wasn't prepared to do it. He warned it would lead to an election. He warned that Parliament might block it. He said that he might be prepared to extend beyond the October the 31st deadline. Is he now regretting sending a signal to the EU 27, don't worry, we're never going to do this?
No, I think he was clear that we want to get an agreement. And I think the aim has to be that in equal measure we say to the EU, we want to get an agreement with you because it's in our mutual interest to do so. But at the same time, we have a clear instruction from the British people to leave the European Union, and we intend to do so. If we can do it with a deal, that's great. But if we can't get a deal, we will leave without it. And that's because I think that what's become very clear, and I've discussed it on this programme before, is that the whole idea of reneging on the promise we made in the referendum would lead to the fragmentation of our political system. So we have to honour that referendum promise to leave.
Though, isn't it? What's really changed is the emergence of the Brexit Party as a channel for the anger that you're talking about in terms of not delivering. Last night, we saw a big Brexit Party rally. Tim Montgomery, well-known Tory blogger, tweeter and writer, said, you can't imagine Jeremy Hunt dealing with these people. It's Boris Johnson's got the charisma. So your party looks as if it's set to say, if you can't beat them, join them. We've got to be almost as hardline as them.
No, and Jeremy Hunt has said very clearly he wants to get an agreement, and I think that with his background in business, he's well placed not only to be able to get an agreement, but he knows,
you say that.
He knows the very European.
You've said that many times that he wants an agreement. Here he is, though, about a parallel with bailing out the banks. This is a voluntary activity. We are choosing to leave the European Union. You're talking of looking in the eye of somebody whose businesses crashes.
No, we are not.
Billions of pounds
You're
unnecessarily.
wrong there. We are not choosing to leave the European Union. The British people chose to leave the European Union.
Well,
the question is, do we leave
the timing
with a
is a
deal
choice of Parliament,
or do we leave without a deal?
Yeah,
now, I have three times, as Jeremy has, voted to leave the EU with a deal in Parliament. Had my colleagues all done the same, we would have left the European Union already. We'd have left in March. Now the question is, can we get an agreement that Parliament will be willing to pass to enable us to leave without having to spend, frankly, that money on those no-deal preparations.
You are,
but
as
we
you
have
say,
to make those contingency plans.
You are, as you say, one of the people who's most robustly argued for Brexit. You did so in the referendum. You've done so around the cabinet table. I'm told that one of the reasons you did not quit cabinet and have warned against no deal in the past is as a unionist, you are deeply concerned that a no-deal Brexit could break up the United Kingdom. Do you still hold that worry?
Well, there is no doubt that there are people who will use the threat of disruption of a no-deal Brexit to further their own aims. Nationalists of one form or another who don't want the UK to succeed and who would use any problems that we had to try to force that. That is why it's really important that we get a realistic approach to no deal, that we are able to put the mitigations in place so that in Scotland, for example, where there is a bigger reliance on farming than in some other parts of the UK,
but let's be
there are
clear
measures
what you're
put in
saying.
place.
A no-deal Brexit could, handled wrongly, with serious economic consequences, lead to an independent Scotland and also a border poll in Ireland to reunite the island of Ireland?
Well, it could. We know they are both real threats. There's no point in pretending they're not there. And therefore, we have to put in place the details of what a no deal would look like, including how we protect crucial industries like fishing and farming, and how we deal with small businesses. And it's not good enough to simply say we're going to have a no deal. We need to prepare for it. That's what government is all about.
The other interesting shift in what Jeremy Hunt spelt out yesterday was he's going for a sort of Canada-style free trade agreement, ripping up the plan that the government's pursued for 3 years. Now, what that would mean in practice is this, isn't it? Is that manufacturers who wanted customs relationship to be as close as possible with Europe to preserve their sort of just-in-time delivery systems are going to be told, in effect, we're abandoning you. We will not retain those sorts of relationship. It'll be much more distant.
Well, I've always argued that the only way you can get frictionless trade is actually to be in the single market. And if you're not in the single market, then in sector by sector, you have a choice about what level of alignment you want to have. We need to have this debate about what the future relationship with the European Union will be. Our entire debate so far has been about the withdrawal agreement and leaving the EU rather than the debate about the future, and how we give Britain the balance between being able to access the European market, which is still about 44% of our exports, while at the same time not tying our hands in our ability to access the growing markets outside Europe.
That's the upside.
That's the debate we need to have.
Sure, and that's the upside that you've always argued for. Just to be clear about the downside for people who don't follow the detail of this, what's called Canada Plus means that for British Aerospace, the wings for those planes cross, I think I'm right in saying, 7 borders in order to come across to be manufactured here. For those car parts that arrive just in time, that will no longer be possible under a Canada. You can add as many pluses as you like. It will not be possible.
Well,
there'll be paperwork, there'll be regulations, there'll be tariffs.
So there are two elements. No, if you were in an agreement, a Canada Plus agreement, then you can very well have a tariff-free environment. What you can't have is a regulatory-free environment, because that's the difference between a customs union and a single market. And if you're not in the single market, there will be regulatory barriers. The whole point of the debate will be in which sectors do we want closer alignment with the EU, because that's to the advantage of the UK economy, and where do we want less alignment, because that might be to our advantage. This is the debate I've been wanting us to have in recent times, and we're still stuck on the withdrawal agreement. And what has Jeremy said yesterday, which is quite different from what we've had before, is that the future economic partnership, the trade agreement, will actually come under the Department for International Trade alongside the other trade agreements. That's the debate we really need to be having as a country.
Liam Fox of the Department of International Trade.